All right,
Boom.
we're on.
Boom. Welcome.
How's it going, David?
Awesome. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's been a little bit of a crazy morning, but doing good.
Business or surfing?
Um, Standing on ladders and scaffolding.
Understood.
Doing kind of barn project.
Oh, okay, cool. Good to connect with you after all these years.
I know, super stoked. I've been really enjoying your podcast.
Thank you. I was glad to hear that. I forgot that we had communicated way back when. I mean, I think that said 2018 on those original email
Yeah,
exchanges.
me too. I was like, wait, I should be on this podcast. And then I was like, ah.
I did reach out officially. I think I was in Maui at that time. So I was reaching out to people, like trying to connect with people while I was on the ground, because it's always a little bit easier. I think Zoom's actually gotten fantastic since COVID, and it makes it easy now. But at that time, in person was the only way to do it, really.
Yeah, totally. Zoom was very bad back then.
Yeah. I don't know anything about how you grew up. I saw that you were born in Canada, which surprised me, but can you tell me about how and where you grew up?
Yeah, I was born in Victoria, British Columbia, on the west coast of BC, and on an island. And I lived there until I was 7.5, almost 8, and just raised by my mom, single mom. I had an older brother and sister that were both adults by that time, and it had always been my mom's dream to kind of travel around Australia. And so we did. My mom sold the house that I grew up in. She had just done some like renovation stuff and built a duplex on the back property. So she sold both of them, and she was a real estate agent and a mortgage broker in a past life. So she did pretty well with that. And then we packed up everything that I knew in storage and took off to Australia, not knowing how long we were going to be there. Not much of a plan other than that we were going to travel and camp and drive around the country. And Australia is really, really cool for that. I mean, it's one of the only places in the world that you can literally travel around the entire country camping. Every town has a campground. And the campgrounds are really, really, really nice. They all have water, power. They really encourage people to travel. And at the time, it was pretty affordable. So yeah, we moved to Australia and traveled around the country in a van for 10 months, just my mom and I. And that was from age 8 to 9. And we literally did the whole country. We started in Sydney and drove up the East Coast, up to Cairns and back down. And then we went to Tasmania. And my grandfather had a good friend that lived there. And we visited with her, and then back to Sydney and all along the southern coast, all the way over to Perth, and then Perth up to Darwin up the west coast, and then down through the middle to Uluru and up to Cairns and back down, all in 10 months. And definitely very formative childhood years there, 8 to 9. And it was just, I don't know, that's where I had my first surf lesson, of course. And on our way back, we had always been coming to Maui since I was a little kid, and my mom for, I don't know, 20 years prior to me. My aunt and uncle had lived here for a very long time, so it was kind of her vacation destination. And so we stopped on the way back to Canada. And yeah, my mom decided then that she was done with the cold. She'd lived in Canada her whole life. She'd done 40 plus years in the cold and was over it. And so we moved to Maui when I was 9. And I mean, you're around the ocean, you're surrounded by ocean here. And my mom loved going to the beach. And I was always like a really active kid and played sports growing up, baseball, soccer, tennis, anything that my mom kept me busy. I had a lot of energy as a kid, and I'm a fire sign, and she always like talks about how I needed to be outdoors. So the ocean was kind of like a natural thing to just fall in love with. I started with a bodyboard and playing around in the shore break and slowly learning the currents. And when I had that surf lesson in Australia, it was really like an eye-opening thing. Like, whoa, I really like this, and this is something that I could do. Cool, I was little. So when we moved to Maui, that was what I wanted to do. But my mom made me bodyboard first, just to get comfortable in the ocean. And I learned at Hokipo, where I surf every day here in the wintertime. Still my home break, and little circles become bigger circles, and finally making it out the back. And yeah, I just truly fell in love with surfing once I moved here.
How cool is your mom?
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
I mean, the fact
I,
that how did she end up in Victoria in the first place? Did she grow up in Canada?
so she was born in England, and my mom's parents were both doctors, and they traveled quite a bit during her childhood, but they ended up I think she started in Saskatoon. She was there for like in the middle of Canada for 20 years. And then she slowly started moving west as an adult. She had my brother and sister when she was 19 and 20. I'm doing the math right. So pretty young. And then moved to Calgary. So slowly west, and lived in Calgary for 10 years. And then moved to Victoria and lived in Victoria for 10 years. And my brother and sister were 17 and 18 years older than me. So when I was 7, they were 24, 25. And so it was like a completely, like, I remember like growing up with them and having my brother lived with us for like most of my childhood. And they were around, but I mean, that age difference is so big when you're a little kid. And then when we left, I was 7. So my memories of them, were from when I was a little kid. And my sister came out to Maui a handful of times. And then unfortunately, they both struggled with addiction their whole lives. So my sister passed away a couple years ago, and I'm still in touch with my brother on a day-to-day basis, but he lives in Vancouver. So yeah, I mean, different fathers, they have a different dad. So it was kind of just it was a little different.
Yeah, but it sounds like your mom designed her life pretty incredibly. Like, for listeners who haven't been or don't know, Victoria is an incredible location. Really beautiful, also surrounded by water. Obviously, it's an island, but also forest on the island, like Pacific Northwest style forest. Which there's a lot of surfing there now, but when you were growing up, was there any surf scene?
I mean, I wasn't around it. My mom's
Okay.
not a surfer. And I would imagine back then it was very small. I mean, obviously up in Tofino more so.
Yeah.
And it's been fun to kind of reconnect back with my Canadian roots a little bit. I've actually, oh, sorry, hold on
No,
one second.
yeah,
My
go for it.
demanding dog.
Go.
Okay. Editing.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, it's been pretty fun to kind of reconnect with like my Canadian roots a little bit. I actually was on the Canadian surf team the past few years. And I hadn't been back to Victoria or Vancouver Island since we left, till about 5 years ago, which that trip was just, insane to come back as an adult. And I was by myself at the time. So I drove up to Tofino from Victoria, and, like immediately just was like, oh yeah, this is where I would, the huge trees, and it's stunning. Like, it's stunning in a completely different way than where I live now. And I just really loved it there. I mean,
equally as beautiful though.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous. And I don't want to live in the cold because I
Yeah.
don't like the cold. But if I mean, I could totally live there. It's insane. Like the beauty and just how old everything is compared to here. I mean, the trees there are ancient, and the island itself is gorgeous, and on the Pacific side the surf is really good,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of really good waves there, and I've made quite a few good friends there, and um yeah, it's insane, but I mean, Maui is home.
Totally. Incidentally, my mom's going there next week for vacation.
Oh, no way, that's funny.
Her sister lives on an island off of Seattle, like Bainbridge or something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, so she's going up to visit her sister, and then they're going to go over for a day or two or something.
Oh,
But
nice.
do you have a lot of memories from that trip in Australia?
Oh yeah.
That was your mom, did she just pull you out of school
Yep.
during that time? Amazing.
I was always pretty good in school. I was definitely quite a bit ahead of everyone in my class at the time, so my mom wasn't necessarily worried about me.
Okay.
And I was reading and doing math the whole trip, but we didn't have some set structure. I wasn't, it wasn't necessarily um there wasn't like a homeschool curriculum back then. That wasn't out
Yeah.
yet, really.
Yeah.
And I was fine. When I came back to Maui, I still tested ahead. And I mean, I got straight A's my whole
I,
schooling.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think a structured school environment probably holds back so many kids' learning abilities. And a trip like that would be just unbelievably enriching for all of the synapses in your brain to be firing and making new connections, that you probably are better off doing something like that.
Oh, totally. I mean, that age is like, it was incredible. And looking at a lot of my friends' kids now, that are that age, and to look back on it, like that was the best thing that my mom could have ever done for me. I mean, every day was a different new experience, and every campground I had to make new friends and talk to adults, and I was reading a lot. Like I love reading, and I love doing math. Like I would do that on my own, and those are things that like you need to know how to do. But like everything else that you're learning when you're like not in a structure like that, and you're traveling, and the places that I got to see and the people that I got to meet, like those were incredible times. I really wish that I could do it again as an adult. Who knows, maybe I'd do it with my kid, I mean with Sean, but things are a little bit different now. But I mean, it's looking back on it, it's yeah, I feel like my mom needs to write a book or something about it. Like it was such a cool trip, and every time I talk about it, people are just blown away, like, wait, you just did that with just your mom? And I'm like, yeah, it was just me and my mom. And I mean, Australia is and was a pretty safe country. Like it's not that wasn't a crazy thing there,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was amazing, and I'm so glad that I had a surf lesson, because who knows, like that was a moment where I was just on the beach, and I guess I said to my mom, like I was watching people doing it, and I told her I wanted to try it, and she's like, okay, well, let's get you a lesson. And I did one lesson, and that's, I mean, what maybe shaped my whole trajectory in life, and where I am today is from that one moment. Who knows?
Where was that at?
Gosh, I'm so bad. I always used to say that it was in Byron Bay, and my mom would always correct me, and I can't remember where it was. I'll have to ask her. I know it was on the East Coast somewhere.
Do you remember any of the waves that you caught in that session?
No, I just
Yeah.
remember that I could stand up, and I was like, this is easy. I can
Right.
do this.
So growing up in Maui, kind of discovering surfing and getting into it, did you have any aspirations, or was there even a career path for a young aspiring female to have a professional surf career?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I started surfing, I say when I was 10. And I started competing, I don't know, less than a year later. I did my first like keiki contest in Lahaina. And I loved it, and I like really loved the challenge, and I did really well in events here on Maui and in the state, and I won the US championships at 13 in the, I think it was 17 and under division at the time, and beat some very good surfers. And I knew I'd say at 13, like that was kind of a turning point where I knew that that was what I wanted to do as a job. And at the time, the only avenue of being a professional female surfer was to compete and to do the tour. And at the time there was magazines and there were women's surf films, and it seemed like the absolute dream job to get to travel and surf these incredible waves, the dream tour. And that's what I wanted to do. And so, as a teenager here, I was competing in the NSSA events. At the time, there was 2 events on every island, and we had to travel and do all these events. And I used to have to like fundraise and ask friends for help in order to do it. My mom didn't have any money, and she was extremely supportive, but I needed to ask for help. And that was a huge thing where I was like, I felt okay asking for help, because I think I had that kind of ingrained in me of like talking to adults and talking to people from when I was little in Australia. And so anyways, I did the NSSA contest and all of the Hawaii Amateur Surfing Association contests here. And, we'd end up at states, and, I was a few years older than Carissa and Coco and Alana Blanchard and Bethany. I was like a year older than Bethany. And so we were all competing together, and Malia Manuel and so many amazing surfers, Leilani Gride. And we, all got to compete against each other throughout the state, which was really cool. And there were so many good female girls when I was growing up. And I feel like there was almost like a huge gap from then until, I don't know, there's almost like a 10-year gap where you're like, where are all the girls? And it really, it shows, like Coco, I think, was the youngest one, and she was on tour forever. And then there was like this huge gap to the girls now, but yeah, so I looked up to, the Hawaii girls here, Rochelle Ballard, Cal Kennelly, Megan Abubo. Like I saw them in all of the videos that I was watching and all of the magazines, and saw them on the podiums. And every year at the end of the championship tour, the last contest of the year was at Honolulu Bay on Maui. And that's where most of the world titles were decided, and really, really special to be able to see that in person as a little girl and wanting to do that. So I got to meet all of my heroes every year, if I didn't see them on other islands, but all of the pros were here on Maui. And then, as I think I was 13 when I first competed in the trials event. At that event, they had a trials every year. It was the first heat of the day before the contest started, and the winner of the trials would get a spot in it was a Billabong event at the time. And I got to surf in it 2 times. Maybe once I won the trials. The year that I won the trials, I beat Steph because she was in it. She was in the running for the Triple Crown. I think that's how she ended up in the trials. And it was huge. And I think I was 18 at that time. and it was really big, and I was on a 6.2 and everyone was riding like 6.8s and huge boards. And but yeah, that at that time, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a world champion, and I wanted to do the qualifying series, and I wanted to be on the dream tour with all of those girls, and that's what I aspired to do. And as I was 18, 19, 20, I didn't have a main sponsor. I didn't have the proper funding to chase the qualifying series and to do it properly, to do a whole year. I had to work and do jobs that allowed me to still surf in the mornings and the evenings, and save up money and pick and choose the events that I went to. And I mean, unless you get really lucky and are of the caliber of surfers that can just show up and only do a few contests and still qualify, it's really hard. And traveling halfway around the world to surf 1 to 2 foot beach break and spend $5,000, you're like, this sucks. And I got over that pretty quickly and decided that, like, if I'm gonna, if I'm not being supported by a company that's gonna, like, help me rise to the occasion, then if I'm spending all this money, I may as well go on good surf trips and just surf good waves. And I had a few friends around me that were kind of getting into, being free surfers, but they were guys and they're getting paid a lot of money to make these video parts. And I just thought that was so cool. But I was like, that you can't really do that as a girl. And right around that time, a couple years later, I felt a little lost there for a few years, but was still surfing a lot and traveling. And I went to Indo a couple times and did a few trips here and there. And then the Jaws paddle-in movement started, and we had always thought, I'd toe surfed it quite a bit, but we'd always thought that it wasn't a wave that you could paddle. And at that time, I had quite a few peers around me that were in the mix of those few, first sessions that were out there doing it. And I saw them succeed and catch really good waves. And I was like, I want to be a part of that. I don't want to miss out. And it was almost like this complete natural progression to go from, from kind of feeling somewhat lost and not necessarily having a career path, but doing it because I really truly loved it. And I'd always really loved bigger waves. Like, that was a huge part of why I wanted to be on the championship tour, was because they had such good waves at the time. It really was the dream tour. They had Fiji and Tahiti and Honolulu and all these events. And then, as those events slowly got taken away off of the tour, it was also in the back of my mind, like, why would I want to, like, struggle to qualify to be on a tour that, my surfing doesn't necessarily shine in. So that was happening at the same time. And, surfing out at Jaws became like this new wonder of the world to be able to paddle surf out there. And I was just so excited about it. And at the time, my partner Sean was making big wave boards for Marcio and Albie and Matt Miola and the crew. And I was like, okay, I guess make me one. And I remember he made me a 9.6 because I had been invited to an event in Oregon. And then everybody was on much bigger boards at Piahi. And I was like, okay, make me a 10.2. And I think he made me a 10.2 or 10.4. And I remember putting it under my arm and literally just my jaw dropped. And I was just like, there's no way I'm going to catch a wave on this board. Like, it scared me. The boards are so big. And if you've never, like, held one, you're like, it's just so crazy when you pick it up. You're like, I'm going to catch a wave with this thing. So it was kind of just like this new wonder and excitement. And the first time that I ever surfed out there, paddle surfing, I caught 3 waves and I was hooked. And I mean, I still remember those waves and every drop of water, that flew by me. And it was, just a really special session looking back on it. It was only Maui crew out there. And
tell me about the waves that day.
It was like a beautiful, probably like 15 to 18 foot glassy day with like maybe a couple bigger sets. And I think Matt had called us and was down on the cliff with Albie and the boys and Marlon, and he's like, it's perfect, get down here. And so we drove down and hiked down the cliff. This was before impact vests and safety plans and not even a thought of what could go wrong. And we hiked down the trail, and the boys that had jumped off the rocks before showed us how to do it, and we had really good timing and got out pretty easy. No thoughts of coming back in. It was just like a one-track mind of like, we're going out there to ride waves. There wasn't any of the like what ifs. Things are a lot different now for me. But yeah, that session was amazing. Sean and I jumped off the rocks, and I caught my very first wave was like this inside West Bowl, and I just went straight. I'd never gone that fast on a board that size, and like made it all the way out into the whitewash, and then got destroyed and got really pounded, but came up and paddled back out, and everybody was like so psyched that I caught a wave. And I was like, well, I want to like make the wave, not just go straight. And so my second wave, I shared with, was that day? I think I shared a wave with Pat Fukuda, who's a fireman here, an amazing surfer. And then my third wave was like this really cool, like West Bowl, but it was really steep. And I just rode it into the channel, and it was, that was really cool. And then, the wind had started to pick up a little bit, and there were probably 20 of us out. And I remember I was chit-chatting to a friend out in the water and not really paying attention to where we were, and got sucked deeper than I wanted to be and got caught inside by a set, and my leash broke right away. Like that, those were the days that every leash was just popping left and right because they just weren't strong enough at the time. And I was just swimming in the lineup. And it was one of those moments looking back on it that I love telling the story, because there were no jet skis in the water that day for 20 surfers. And luckily, I don't know, 10 minutes before that happened, Yuri Soledad had pulled up with his partner, and Yuri had just jumped in the water, and his the guy that was on the ski, he was there as safety for all of us basically, but he didn't know it. And what had happened was I had broken my leash, so I'm swimming in the lineup. Albie had just broken his board, so he's swimming in the lineup. So he grabbed Albie, came and grabbed me, and then took us into the rocks, because we were going into, Albie was going to find the rest of his board, and I was going to go find my board. And I'd never been back in on the rocks there yet, which was quite an experience. And luckily I was with Albie, and he's like, I'm gonna crab up the rocks, like you'll be fine. And we timed, it's all timing for stuff like that. And it, we just waited, and then just rode up a surge. And yeah, it was really turbulent and gnarly, and probably ended up with some bruises, but we got up there and then like scurried up the rocks as fast as we could. And we kind of walked around the corner. I got my board. Albie found his piece, and we're starting to walk back, and we look out, and there's this huge set, and we're like, oh my God. And I remember just seeing Yuri take off on this wave, and he's airdropping, and turns out his board, while he was airdropping and he fell, his board hit him in the face and broke his jaw. So within like 15 minutes, two of us were swimming in the lineup, and Yuri has a broken jaw. And like, what would we have all done if we didn't have a ski there. And it was definitely one of those, it was a life-changing moment. Sean and I bought a new ski, not a brand new one, but a used ski the next week from a friend. And I've never gone up there without a jet ski or a plan since then. So yeah, that first session made quite an impact on so many different things, but more than anything, it was like, holy crap, I can ride waves like that, and I can catch them on my own and be going at speeds that I've never gone, unless you're on a towboard.
Unbelievable. So are you officially the first female to paddle surf it?
No, Andrea paddled it before me.
Oh, she did? Okay.
Yeah.
You were talking about the difference with that board. Was it a 10-2, you said?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to a 9-6? Is there a noticeable difference between 9-6 and 10-2? I feel like once you're up in that 9 range, it looks similar.
Yeah, I mean, it looked similar, but I mean, even 2 inches, like the difference between, now my boards are so dialed in that the difference between a 9.8 and a 9.10 is like a huge feeling. Like,
amazing.
I mean, if you've never ridden a board like that before, like, yeah, a 10.2 is definitely substantially more volume than a 9.6, but yeah, they're just huge boards. And now it's like every couple of inches. Sean's like, you need to go every 4 inches. And I'm like, no, 9.8 is my favorite board. And 9.10 is just for those slightly bigger days. And then I go up to a 10.4 after that.
You were talking about not getting any like industry or brand support when you were pursuing the contest scene. Firstly, do you think any of that was related to just being from Maui? Because I feel like there was a bunch of Maui pros that were just like had more talent even than so many of their peers, but had that kind of Maui, I don't know if it was a curse or what, just not receiving the industry support. So was that related to it at all, do you think?
I don't really know. I mean, as a female at the time, it was hard. It wasn't, it was, surf brands were investing in kind of a different direction than like who's going to win the contest versus like the guys, a lot of like my peers that were my age, Dusty Payne, Granger Larson, like they, Kai Barger, Albie, like they all had sponsors.
Yeah, that's true.
They're all from Maui. And I mean, a lot of them, their sponsors fizzled later.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what it was, and I don't even like waste my time anymore, but it was just a time where it was just a little bit harder as a girl to get help. And I mean, I had smaller sponsors that definitely like helped me here and there, but I wasn't paying my rent off of being a surfer. Let's put it that way.
So once you started diving into that big wave, or committing, I guess, to the big wave scene, was there support for that?
I definitely got more support. I mean, all my like smaller sponsors started chipping in a little bit more, and I wasn't necessarily traveling for big wave stuff. I mean, at that time I'd only done a trip, I think over to Oregon was my first one, and then a few years later to Mavs. But I was mostly just focused on here, and still am. I mean, I only do like maybe 1 or 2 trips for big waves a year, because I have the best big wave right here.
Well, since you brought that up, I've heard Bianca Valenti say that it's actually one of the hardest waves in the world, that Jaws or Piahi is one of the hardest waves in the world. But from the comfort of my sofa, it looks more perfect and predictable than a lot of other big waves. So what are the biggest challenges of that wave versus other big waves?
Yeah, I mean, every wave and every big wave spot has its own challenges. And I mean, Piahi is the most perfect it's a perfect A-frame. There's a left and a right off of every wave. It's literally like what you draw on your notepad as a kid or on your homework as a kid in school. And the right is really hollow, and I'm a regular footer. So I much prefer big waves on my forehand. Just because of like growing up here on Maui, I mean, there's not a lot of lefts here. And I mean, who doesn't want to get barreled? But that wave, I mean, the lineup is pretty spread out compared to, like, say, Mavericks, for example. You have like 2 lineups, and as long as you're in that window, like give or take a little bit, like you can sink your tail and paddle into a wave. Where Piahi has like, maybe 150-yard spread of, you could sit on the West Bowl where Albie sits, or you could sit on the far North Peak where Shane and Billy sit. Like there's quite a spread, and there's really good waves in between. So it's definitely like, it's very hard, but I think the more time you spend out there, like anywhere, you learn its nuances. And I also Kayla always gives me a lot of crap for spending so much time on the ski. She's like, you'll sit there for 2 hours and then you'll come out and you'll get the best wave of the day. And I'm like, well, I'm not just dinking around on the jet ski. I'm paying attention to what's happening. And I feel like the more you watch, the more you learn. And you can learn that from being in the lineup, but you can also learn it from just being out there and watching what's happening. Like the photographers and the safety crew and the people that are there on skis, like up close and personal, are seeing things that you're not necessarily seeing if you're out the back. So I'm very particular in the waves that I want to catch, and I'm very particular in the conditions that I want to surf out there. I've had numerous injuries and amazing rides, and I'm just going out there to better my past rides. I'm not out there to catch a million waves. And the risk is really high, and a wipe out there can be extremely violent, and I just want to go out there and pick good waves. So I do spend a lot of time watching, and sometimes we show up and it's just, it's not the moment. There's 60 guys out and it's inconsistent and there's a weird warble on it. And so I'll sit and wait and crowd thins out. The tide dropped a little bit, and this is my window. And when I feel that it's on, I go out and I watch and look for the waves that I want to ride. And if I don't see them, I'm not like psyched about it. And you have to be super psyched to go out there. And so I'm just particular, and I'm okay with that. Like I don't have FOMO if I, didn't go out on a crappy day. I'm like, it wasn't good out there. Like it wasn't my conditions. And I definitely like it when it's a lot cleaner. I'm pretty picky. It doesn't happen all the time, but I just want to go out and get really good rides. And that's, what my love of that wave is, because it's so perfect when you do get the good ones compared to a lot of big waves around the world. You're like, gosh, like that was like the best wave of the day at some of these bigger spots, are like average rides at Piahi. And you're like, it's hard to leave, home in the comforts of my home, to go and chase cold water waves that, I'm so foreign and weird in a wetsuit. And unless it's like with the right crew or whatever, like I really like to feel stoked on big waves, not like questioning. And so I only usually do like 1 or 2 trips a year to big waves, and then really try to focus my entire winter is predominantly around just surfing out at Jaws.
You said Albie sits on the West Bowl and Shane and Billy sit on the North Peak. Where do you sit?
All over.
Okay. Depending on the day.
Yeah, I used to sit more on the West Bowl. The West Bowl is really steep.
Yeah.
And the waves that I'm hunting are kind of in between.
Okay.
Usually somewhere in between. that kind of let you in a little bit easier. But I'm just looking for another big barrel, and this winter I'm crossing my fingers that everything that people are hyping El Nino winter up to be, I'm really looking forward to it, and just preparing myself as best as I possibly can, because I want to get one of those huge big barrels, that you can backdoor. And I already know what I have to do, and I have all the right things set in place and the best boards, and it's just being in the perfect spot at the perfect time to get one.
I mean, you got that one this past year. That was a closeout. What adjustment do you make from that point?
Yeah, I mean, that wave was really cool because I've been trying to find a wave like that for a really long time. And as you can imagine, like, only a few sessions a year out there the past few years, and with 50, 60 people in the water, it's hard to find that very specific wave that you want, especially with really hungry guys that, are out there to do the same. But yeah, that wave was really cool because it just gave me like this totally different perspective of what I can do out there. Like, I know what line I need to take. I know the slight changes that I could have done to have made that wave. And I mean, I've practiced it through visualization, and I've seen it in my dreams like over and over and over again. It's just kind of going out there and just doing it now. So yeah, I'm hoping and I'm planning on getting one of those and making it out
I mean, was that wave
with the claim?
was that thing makeable, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
For
it
sure.
looked, I mean, it looked like it just ran off to me. Like, I'm not sure what you
I
could have
needed
done
to be a
differently.
little wider or on a smaller board, knifing from the takeoff.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Different takeoff for sure.
Yeah, it was a weird wave. I mean, footage only does it so much justice. Like, you watch it over and over and over again, and it looks so doable and so easy, and it's like you don't see those moguls going through the wave that you had to navigate. But I've watched it so many times, and now, like, I'm like, okay, I wish that I was just slightly over. I wish I was in between where I was and where Ian was. And I'm like, sorry, Ian, like, you would have made that wave, but like somewhere in between would have been insane.
Yeah,
but it definitely did like this weird kind of clampy thing at the end, but I think you could have made it out before that happened.
Yeah, I hear you. From where you took off and the approach that you had, it was just late. But is that there's one still image from kind of the impact zone, like water level, looking up at you pulling up under. Is that the same wave?
From over on the left, like looking
behind?
basically.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's an incredible shot too.
Fred Pompmeyer took that photo.
Okay.
I love that angle of Piahi. I think it's the coolest angle because it shows you like how throaty and heavy the wave is. And it's really cool when you can get it. He was slightly close. He likes to be like just slightly back, because then you get the cliff off in the distance. Oh yeah, that angle is so cool.
It is. What year was it that you first paddle surfed it?
I'm so bad with dates, but I think it was 2011.
Okay. Well, in 2016, the WSL ran a Big Wave World Tour event there. And you won the inaugural event and became the first ever female Big Wave World Champ. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah. How did that accolade change your career, change your life, or did it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my first real like significant impact in the surfing world was getting my Jaws barrel there. Like, that was something that, at the time, like, everybody was talking about, and it was, obviously for me, it was something that I had dreamt about and wanted to do for so long. But it was, it was a moment in time, and at the time it was really cool because so many different publications, like, it was like interview after interview to talk about this wave, and everybody on social media was talking about it, and it was really special. But the contest, like a couple years later, I mean, the viewership and the eyes that get to see that event is such a bigger thing than you even know really during the day. Like the actual day in the event it's pretty crazy and chaotic out there. I mean, that event, it was really windy.
Yeah.
And it was not a day that I would have probably, I mean, maybe now, but I don't really like surfing it when it's windy. It's so dangerous, and it just adds a whole nother element to an already very challenging situation. And it causes a lot of air and wind coming up the face of that wave that you already are navigating on a glassy day, just the way that everything like comes together and like sucks up the face of that wave. And it was really windy. It was the first time a lot of the women in the contest had ever been out there.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was kind of crazy. And so I was kind of almost like a voice of reason to a lot of friends that were out there. And I both of my heats that I surfed, I just had little pep talks with my friends, like, let's just go out there and catch waves. And like I knew where I could make waves from, and ride waves to the channel. And a lot of the girls went beyond their knowledge of where the lineup was into the pit, right to where like the wind vortex is at its extreme power, and just got really, really pounded. And I just kind of went out there and did my thing. I wasn't necessarily thinking like I'm gonna win this contest. I just wanted to like put on a good show and show that we belong out there. And I mean, that it's my favorite place in the world, so like just to go out and successfully ride waves. And that's what I did, and I ended up winning a world title from that contest, which was not what I expected. It wasn't even on my radar competing in the event that we were going to do that. It felt really weird winning a world title off of one contest at the time. I mean, looking at things now, like so many world champions are crowned over one contest. Like the juniors have always been one contest. But at the time there was like a big wave tour, and the women were only a part of the Piahi event. So it just felt a little strange that like the guys were getting crowned a world title off of multiple events, and then the women, it was just off of one. And I was pretty vocal about that. And I mean, the next year was the same. I won the contest again and another world title, and it still felt weird. Not to take anything away from them, because I'm very proud of those accomplishments, and it definitely was it gave me a platform as an athlete that I'm forever grateful for. But yeah, it was definitely a little strange at the time, accepting a world title from one contest. But we slowly watched the big wave tour kind of slowly get cut down, and events were taken away, and all of a sudden it was just the Piahi event. And I mean, if you're only going to have one big wave contest a year, that's the best big wave in the world, and every single big wave surfer would say the same. So they're very special accomplishments. And yeah, I remember
when you said you were vocal about that kind of only having one event for the women, were you vocal to the WSL directly, and were they receptive to your feedback?
I mean, to the WSL, to our peers, to social media, like I was just kind of speaking from the heart. And like it just felt weird to accept a world title from one contest. And now looking back on it, like I said, I'm like, okay, maybe my perspective would have changed, but I still think that like I mean, the championship tour now comes down to one contest at Trestles, so things are a little different now. But
Yeah, it's regressing. They shouldn't be going that
yeah,
direction. Everything
and
should be going
I
the
strongly believe in a tour, and if you can compete in all the different types of waves throughout the year, that's the world title. But anyways,
well, the thing that I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm going to jump on your side here. The thing that drives me nuts about it is why do it half-assed? Like that for the WSL to do this one event for the women, it seems it'd be easy to say, thank you for this gift. This is an opportunity for us, and this gives us an opportunity to like showcase our abilities. But I don't think that's why they're doing it. To me, it seems like the WSL is really, it feels more exploitative, because it doesn't actually, like you said, it was the first time that a number of those women in that event had ever surfed the wave. So it doesn't actually give the opportunity to showcase the best of their abilities and their talents. It gives the WSL an opportunity to say, we are championing women's surfing, but not really doing a service to the women's surfing. That's what I felt like.
yeah, I mean, like I said, my perspective now is so much different because that was such, that was 8 years ago, and a lot has changed since then. And where we're at with the big wave scene is so different now than where it was then. And it was a huge opportunity at the time for sure. And I mean, that was the first event that they put on that like we weren't raising our hands like asking to be invited. They invited us. They were like, the first year they ran that contest, it was just the guys, and I was sitting in the channel going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, it was hard to sit on the sidelines, although that first year was as windy and as gnarly as it gets, and I was stoked to not be in that contest. But it was, it was one of those moments where it was like, God, we're just like, it's still the boys club. And so I don't necessarily look at it, back then it was definitely like, it was more for the athletes. Like, we were so excited to be a part of it that it wasn't, we weren't viewing it in the same way that I view it now.
Yeah.
And like, it is way different now. Like, yeah, we're equal this and everything. And, but
by contrast, you were also among the first ever females to compete in the Eddie Aikau Invitational this year, alongside Emily Erickson, Andrea Moeller, Justine Dupont. And that was an open division event, which seems like a perfect solution, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings.
Okay.
I wouldn't change a thing, because that moment was so special, and to be in that event for that timing and that swell and who was in the event this year, like, that was the coolest thing ever in big wave surfing and in surfing and in sport. Like, it was one of those magical moments that I will never forget. I would be baffled if a movie wasn't made on the story. I mean, Luke Shepherdson winning while he was on duty, like, come on. And my only takeaway from the Eddie that wasn't like the most positive best thing ever was that I felt like, as the women, and it was the first time in 37 years of the contest being run, that we were somewhat forgotten about. Like, at the end of the day, they awarded the winners, and I understand where they're coming from. Like, it wasn't like a bash against the women or anything. It wasn't malicious. I'm not saying it was like that, but it was like, this was a huge moment in surfing history for the women to, like, the first, there's only one time for a first. And at the end of the day, we were kind of like, so who won the girls? And it was kind of baffling to me. I'm like, how did they not even like acknowledge us? Like, it just felt, it felt like we were a little bit forgotten about, and I know it wasn't done on purpose, but and a lot goes into that contest. Like there was, I mean, they did it with like they were balling on a budget, and it was done in like the most beautiful way to get that event off the ground with no major sponsor. Like they did such an incredible job to even just run the event. It was, it was magical. It felt like it was, like a family, like community event, like the good old days. But my only thing is I wish that we could have had a moment up there. Like we didn't even get a photo together, all of the women. Like that's crazy. And just like, so now, like if I were to have run it, like, and all of the women, like all the girls, we all talked about it, like every heat was so cool. And some of the, I got to surf with Uncle Mike Hove in both of my heats, who was the first, the first time I ever went to the Eddie Aikau opening ceremony. I was staying at Mason and Coco's house. I was there for a contest, and Uncle Mike took us out there and we paddled out into the circle. Like it was the most magical thing. I was probably like 12 or 13 at the time. Didn't even really know what the Eddie was, and I got to surf both of my heats with him. So I surfed both heats with Luke Shepherdson, and I have such magical moments of being like so supported by multiple guys out in the lineup. But I know for sure that the women would have ridden more waves and better waves if we had had 2 heats of just the girls. Like I know for sure that we would have, caught bigger and better waves. I just know it. Like if there's less, when you're surfing a heat with Billy Kemper and Twiggy, they're not giving you a wave.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. So the dynamic would be a little different, but like I said, I wouldn't change it for anything because it really was such a magical experience. And I'm so grateful that I got to be a part of it and to surf, with Keala and Andrea, who are 2 of my like best friends, and to share that day with all of the other surfers. It was amazing. And that swell in particular, and that Eddie, I mean, all of the uncles that have been there from the beginning said it was the biggest, best, most consistent, hands down.
Yeah. So I was asking you about that 2016 world title win, and about how and if your career and life had changed at that point. Did you start to receive more significant support from brands or the industry or recognition or anything like that?
Yeah, sorry I probably just rambled in a completely different direction than answering that question, but yes, I did start to receive more support after that, which it just felt very validating in the sense of like, being able to do some more surf trips. I was doing, I don't know, 4 or 5 different jobs at that time, and I got to scale it back to just one. I was working at the Paia Fish Market a couple nights a week, and I got to be a pro surfer and do surf trips. And then a few years later, it's been, I think this is my 5th year with Patagonia. So a few years after those contests, I got picked up by Patagonia, and can actually say that I'm a professional surfer. And at the time I was 30. So that was pretty cool.
Can you tell me, how did that relationship develop?
I was chasing them down for years.
Good for you.
Yeah. They're the dream company to ride for, and that's who I wanted to ride for a very long time. They don't add and fire athletes off of their program very often. I mean, I don't know anyone that's been dropped by them. So that being said, they move very slowly with adding on people to their team. And it was funny because I was at a point in my life where I remember getting on this call with my team manager and just like I remember that I was just thinking like, I'm going to tell them I'll ride for them for free. Like, I just want to get my foot in the door. And it was the year, like I'd been talking to them for a couple of years. And that it was the year that they were like, we're going to do something. And it was, you know, just something to start off with that year. And the next year we did a short film together. And I ended up winning my third Jaws title that year. So that was pretty cool. And I did a full film tour all over the US and a stop in Canada to all their Patagonia stores. I think I showed it in 13 spots in 14 days. It was pretty crazy, back to back, and just so much fun. And I mean, they're such a dream company to ride for. Just like, I mean, what their vision is and their mission, and who works for them and who rides for them, down to like every employee that works in every store, just like the kindest, most genuine people. You walk into a Patagonia store and people are like stoked to be there. Like, how many surf shops do you walk into where you're like, the guy doesn't even like look at you or acknowledge you? And
Yeah.
I mean, every single Patagonia employee is like really grateful and stoked to work for that company, and as am I. And I love their products, and I think everything that they're doing for the environment is amazing, and I really love the people that run that company.
When you guys formed the relationship, how did you define it? Like, what do they expect of you as a surfer? And then what do you expect of them in terms of support?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give all the details, but it's pretty like relaxed in the sense of, you know, they have certain requirements and asks, and I try to do everything and more. But essentially they just want me to do what I love doing,
Wow.
and to continue, you know, doing that. And it's really cool. And I mean, obviously like surfing is a part of that, but I also have a lot of other passions and that are, you know, aligned with that brand. And I feel very supported in the sense that I'm doing the right thing with, you know, on and off the water. And but it's pretty relaxed compared to some of my other sponsors that, you know, it's more of like a social media.
Sure.
These are your monthly tasks and what you have to do. They're not like that, which is awesome. It's, you know, you're a surf ambassador, an athlete, and an ambassador for their brand and what they care about. And I feel like it's pretty honest with all of their team riders. You know, it's way different than, say, like a mainstream surf brand that, you know, they have you for 3 years and then you're, you know, they have a different marketing strategy that year and then you're gone. It's
Yeah.
not like that. And that shows in everything that they do.
Do they have an opinion on whether or not you compete?
No, they don't. I am very lucky. I can, or I don't. I mean, I don't have to if they don't
Yeah.
care. I
Good.
mean, I compete in the Jaws contest because it gives me an opportunity to have the lineup empty. And that's why I do those contests. And the Canadian surf team stuff is a little different, just because of, I mean, the opportunity to potentially be in the Olympics is like a really, I mean, it's a once in a lifetime thing to try for, and it'd be silly not to. And but I mean, as far as Patagonia goes, they don't care if I do or don't, and which is really cool because I don't have that pressure to do that.
I think it's worth also praising the Red Bull Magnitude event,
Totally.
because I think that's pretty inventive, the way that contest is structured. Can you explain the criteria or the
Yeah,
contest format?
the Red Bull Magnitude is a really cool event. I'm so grateful that we have that. It developed through the brainchild of Kaikea, who was helping. Originally, it was going to be an event at Waimea. It was going to be an all-women's event at Waimea that Betty DiPolito had been trying to do for a very long time, and kept getting, permitting that was kind of too early in the season because of the Eddy. The Eddy had such a long chunk of time, and so she was getting, like August and September, or September and October or something. And so anyways, Red Bull came on board, and I think their plan was to run an event called Queen of the Bay. And the first year it didn't run because we didn't get a swell in the window. And then the second year, I believe it was the second year, was 2020, and COVID shut all of that down. And so Kaikea came up with the idea of like, hey, like everybody's still surfing, and we could do this online and do a contest that's more kind of similar to the Big Wave Awards, and do something just a little bit out of the box. And I mean, it totally makes sense. And I feel like more people get to see it when it's, on this platform. And so the past couple of years, they've done this, it's a Hawaii event, and there's an event window. I believe it was December through March.
Basically 3 months or so.
Yeah, the past couple of years. I'm hoping it opens up a little earlier this year, especially if we have an El Nino winter. It'd be cool. But it's a free technically it's a free surf Hawaii event for women, and you're judged on your top 3 best rides that you choose. The surfer chooses, and you submit them at the end of the season, and you're judged off of those three waves are each scored, and at the end of it, there's an overall best performer. And then there's other awards like the best ride, best tow, I think what was the other award this year? Best like new, I forget what it was called, but like the new
breakthrough.
The breakthrough award. Thank you. And it's just I'm botching the description, but
is it limited to 3 different surf spots?
So yeah, and it's limited to Waimea, and the outer reefs on Oahu, and to Piahi. And there's certain days that certain swells that it gets called on. And what that means is if it's called on, that designated filmers and designated safety will be there for that day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and you can submit other waves from days that are not called on. You just have to be in charge of tracking down your own footage and linking up with people, and you have to kind of take it on your own. But most good days they're running because the waves are good and they're going to capture a lot of content. So it's a content contest, and
sure.
It's pretty cool because for a lot of the women that don't have sponsorship, it's expensive to hire safety, especially here on Maui, to fly over from Oahu, let's say, and to have a place to stay, and then to hire a safety team. Like, it costs money. And so it's pretty cool how, this event allows for a lot of people to come and give a proper crack at it and have safety there to keep an eye on them, and vice versa for when we go over to Oahu.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just been like a really cool thing to see. I mean, the differences in performance from last winter, or I guess this is summer. So 2 years ago and last winter were like exponentially, like I want to say it was like 100% improvement. We did get way better waves. Like 2 years ago, the season was very slow. I think I rode one wave. It was an airdrop, and I won best ride, but I never got 2 other rides for backup scores. So I wasn't in the running for the overall performer, but I won for for that one wave. But so this last winter we had quite a few good swells and good clean days, and yeah, I was on a mission to win it last year. It was one of the first times that I kind of like went out with in a winter where I'm like, I want to win this contest. The other ones, you know, I was kind of just doing my thing, and like, of course you want to win, but it wasn't like a make or break for me. It was more about just like enjoying the moment, enjoying less people in the lineup and all of that. And this was like, you know, I kind of was kicking myself for having such a high score from the year before on one wave and not even having backups. And so this year I was like, I'm going to get 3 really good waves. I'm going to be stoked on all of them. And it worked out. It was really tight. Like, I knew going to the awards that, you know, the top 3 were going to be all within a point of each other. And I had my fingers crossed, but it was really cool because I submitted 3 waves and then I didn't submit the barrel because I didn't make it. So I had a handful of waves that I was like, should I submit this wave that like no one's ever done this before as a woman? But then I had to like go back and, you know, read the criteria. Like, you're not going to get a score on a wave that you don't make versus like, maybe it wasn't the most impactful wave that I thought, but it was a score on the board because I made it into the channel, you know. Okay. And I had quite a few really good waves, and my boards were just so dialed. I felt so comfortable last winter. I'd done like a lot of training leading up to that winter, and I just felt on, and I was so stoked to, you know, that the judges that are all my peers, Ian Walsh, Kai Lenny, Andrea, Rochelle, and Megan Amuvo, like, they're all like very qualified surfers that know the technicality of like being able to just like set your rail on a big wave board. Like, there's differences, and those surfers all know that feeling, and they can like break it down in slow motion and understand that. And I was just so grateful to be rewarded for that, because I really like, I pride myself on like my technical surfing in big waves. Like, I'm not just like hanging on for dear life on, like, I really am like trying to go out there and like ride these waves like a shortboard, you know, and be like more technical. And I was just super stoked that they like saw that.
Yeah, congratulations on that win.
Thank you.
That was a big win.
Thanks.
So we know what kind of the path looks like for, I don't know, shortboard kind of high performance professional surfers, whether they're on the CT, what they need to do in order to have a successful career, or not on the CT, even being able to hire filmers and vlog and Instagram and all that sort of stuff. How much investment are you making into those things with your career? Hiring filmers to follow you around? What's your commitment to publishing content? And do you have kind of a game plan for any of that?
I mean, I do it a little bit. I have to do it. I mean, it's part of my job. It's funny how now, like, an athlete, you're no longer just an athlete. Like, you are, yeah, you're a content creator.
I mean, even for athletes who don't publish a lot, like John, let's say, very sparse publishing, he still has a strategy and a team, and those few posts are very strategic, you know, and a ton of money goes into them as well. So everybody does. I mean, or I should say, if you do, you have more kind of success essentially in the career at this point, you know?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, John's obviously an exception. Like, he, you know, he has a brand that he's built and has money and a full-time filmer, and like, he's an exception. I mean, there are so many different paths now with the way that the internet works, which is so cool, and you can be unique and like, you can really show the world who you are. I find myself somewhere in the middle of like this generation where everything's online and you have to post everything, you have to be posting every day, you have to tell everybody everything, and the old school of like, I really just want to not be on my phone and, you know, and just show up when the waves are good. and kill it. Like I'm somewhere in the middle and I appreciate both. And I go some days where I'm like, okay, this is content day, I'm filming everything that I'm cooking and filming, to make edits and or linking up with photographers for sessions and trying to put together Instagram reels. And then having days where like I don't want to touch my phone at all and it's too much and it's not the real world. But yeah, I do a little bit of both. I mean, I'm making content all the time for sponsors, and I love showing people my garden and like things that I'm passionate about outside of surfing. I think that that's what's really cool as as a professional athlete, like you are given this platform to talk about other things besides just surfing. And I really love like where I live, and like I have different passions that a lot of people don't know about, and I love sharing things with other people that I think that can, inspire people to look at things differently or maybe learn something new. Because that's what I like seeing on social media and in content. And I mean, I absolutely love getting filmed for a session if the waves are firing and like looking back at footage and trying to critique everything. And I feel like that's the best way to get better, and I'm constantly like wanting to do that. But I can't afford to have a filmer full time filming me and making vlogs every single day. But I do have some friends that we do some fun stuff together, and I made a few like just short vlogs last year, and it was pretty funny because every video I'm just cracking up because it's like hilarious. Like, how do you just like selfie yourself behind the camera all the time? But it's crazy. Like those people are making millions of dollars a year doing that.
I don't have it in me personally, but I really wish that I did, because the few moments that I do kind of invest into it, I see the results immediately, like in terms of for the podcast business. But it's just so, it feels like a square peg in a round hole for me. It feels forced.
Yeah, it feels forced for sure. And like I said, like as long as I'm like sharing content or making like videos, like I've done a few amazing video projects with friends, and I've like shown the world like who I am at that time. Like it was really fun to do. And I learned so much through that. And I feel like you connect with so many diverse groups of people through like sharing a little bit more than just who you are, the athlete, the thing, the highlight reel that everybody sees and creates this picture of who you are. Like I feel like you connect with people on such a broader, bigger, more important level by like sharing things that like that make you really stoked. And for me, like when I post stuff about my garden, because I have a property here that I've literally transformed from a piece of grass into like a thriving, I mean, it's a work in progress, but a food forest. Like I have so many amazing things growing here. I post videos of it and I get so many messages from people just so stoked, like, how'd you do that? What, oh my God. And I love that like communication back and forth about that sort of stuff rather than like, what fins were you riding?
Totally.
How wide's your board? Like it's, we've all heard that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, your Instagram bio line, I think, says ocean and soil enthusiast.
Yeah.
And so I was not familiar with that you were a soil enthusiast, but it's good to know. Are you in haiku?
I'm in haiku. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I can hear Jaws come. It comes up the gulch that's on the backside of my house on a big glassy day. I can hear it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What's the status of the Big Wave World Tour?
Oh, is there a tour?
That's what I want to know. Shouldn't you have some insights that I don't have?
I mean, I know that they want to run the Piahi contest and the Nazareth. I mean, as far as I know, it's those two contests, and they just hope for waves. I would hope that one day there will be some sort of tour or something different. I mean, something similar to what, Red Bull Magnitude is, but maybe it's throughout the world, and bringing back more of like the Big Wave Awards. I thought I think that's the best way to showcase our sport. But it's just having the platform to do to do so, and having a business plan of putting it into action, and someone hasn't really picked up the ball for that to do something completely different yet. I'd imagine it will, but for now, all I know is they want to run the Piahi contest and have the tow-in contest at Nazare, and I'm pretty out of the loop.
So it is scheduled to run this next year.
I think so.
Okay, cool. Good.
Yeah. Hopefully, El Nino winter. I mean, we're gonna have so many choices. So
yeah.
days, hopefully.
What can you tell me about your diet and exercise regime?
Yeah. My exercise regime consists of training at a gym that's right up the street from my house, called Deep to Peak. My friend Samantha Campbell is the owner of it, and she trains a lot of different types of athletes, from professional big wave surfers to cyclists to all our ocean athletes here, kite surfers, windsurfers, etc. And I mean, it's a very unique space and gym. It's not like your bra go in and lift weights and get buff place. It's more of like it's an athlete gym. It's really cool. And I'm in there now during the summer, I'm there I do 3 classes a week. And then building up towards winter, like September, we usually do a winter training camp, which is like 5 days a week, in and out of the gym, doing high elevation training, beach workouts, strength and conditioning, agility work, like you name it. And usually go into the winter season feeling as fit as you possibly can be. And it's a really nice confidence booster going into a season like that, just knowing that you can handle anything and you've put in all of that, hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. And it's a really special, unique space, and the camaraderie in there is amazing. And when you're pushing yourself to such a limit and you look over and someone else is who's maybe not a surfer is pushing themselves to their limit at the same time, it's like really inspiring. And it's really cool to see that like how encouraging everybody is. And I always leave there feeling like a better person, like I just got out of the water, like that similar feeling where you're like, yeah, like just really fired up. And it's a really nice group of friends, and yeah, I'm so grateful to have that. And then
feels like the opposite vibe of most gyms.
It's the opposite. It's not a gym. It's really unique and special. And Sam is so on it. And I'm like, she's seen me through so many injuries and through, winning world titles and winning awards. And she's a dear friend. And I know for sure that I wouldn't be where I am today in my career and in my body without her help. So shout out to Sam, because she's great. And I mean, a lot of athletes would say the same thing. We're so lucky to have her and have that space. And yeah, as far as diet goes, I mean, I really love food. It was funny, I was making dinner for Sean last night, and he's like, we eat so good. And I'm like, yeah, you eat really good, huh? Like, just kind of like giving him shit, because
as if it just happens magically.
As if, yeah, exactly. And he's not really the cook. But I really, I really love cooking. And he's like, you just love cooking. And I was like, why I love cooking? And he's like, because you love food. I'm like, I really love good food. And I feel the best when I'm eating really good food. And I find it hard to eat really good food that makes me feel really good outside of my kitchen or friends' kitchens. Like, we have a couple restaurants here that we eat at like religiously that are, you know, like Sean and I have sushi dates every week, and like there's certain restaurants that make really good food here.
I've been to
But
that sushi restaurant. I feel like it's right outside of Haiku, maybe, but Nick Timponi directed me to it.
the Nuka,
I don't remember the name of it, but
guaranteed.
it's the one.
Yeah, it's the one. It's walking distance from my house.
Is it? Yeah, it
I
was
mean, I
so
don't
good.
walk there. It's like probably 15-minute walk, but yeah, it's the best. And we go there once a week.
Yeah.
But besides that, like I really enjoy cooking. And actually 2 years ago I got into hunting, and Sean and I are secretly obsessed with hunting, and I really, really, really have a huge passion for growing my own food, and I have a pretty thriving garden here. And there's something about knowing exactly where your food comes from and to being able to prepare it where your hands are the only hands that have touched what you're eating is it's really hard to describe. And I feel like I eat so well because of that, and I love sharing meals with friends. I think cooking for other people and being able to sit around the table and enjoy a meal and have good conversation is like it's one of the best things that we take for granted. And I think it's just, you know, lives are changed over meals, and I really love it when it's a really good meal. And yeah, I love cooking. I love eating really good food, and I extra love it when I've caught it, not bought it.
Well, what type of hunting?
Axis deer,
Bow hunting or
bow and with a rifle. I do both, and we have a lot of deer here on Maui. It's a huge problem. They're super invasive and they populate like crazy here, and they eat everything in their walkway, and we have too many of them, and they're delicious, and I use every single part of the animal when I kill one, and I share it with my friends and family, and we process it all and hike it out. And I really love hunting. It's actually one of those things that not very many people know that I do because I haven't posted it on social media.
yeah. And
and
nutrient dense too, by the way.
and very nutrient dense. You don't need to eat as much, and it's pretty amazing when you eat like a salad or veggies or beans from the garden and you make a steak. You eat half the amount of food that
Yeah.
that you eat at a restaurant that you're like, gosh, I'm so full. It's like, yeah, because that's all you need. It's like really, really good meat, super lean, it's delicious. And
Did you see Matt Miola's post this morning?
the one with the mushroom heart sauce.
Yes. The morning walk deer that he got.
Yeah, Matt's so
that
funny.
And that meat looked incredible. Like,
Oh yeah,
there's no other way to get that meat. It looked amazing. I mean,
it's hard to beat a ribeye steak, like the fat on it, like, but I don't buy meat at all anymore.
Yeah.
Like at all. Like my whole freezer is filled with deer, and it's like, you know, venison steaks, or we'll do a slow cooked roast or tacos or burgers, and it's so delicious. And once you're like eating that, it's hard to eat other meat. Like I had a steak at a friend's the other night, and I was like, you know, kind of bummed on it. I'm like, it's not good.
Well, it's not worth eating, you know, like when you talk about how your body feels when you're doing things the way that you want to do them, the other things look repulsive because you know how it's going to make your body feel, you know.
Totally. Just on that subject, like, because hunting is such a sensitive subject for everybody, but I was always kind of like grossed out by it. Like a lot of my good guy friends, Matt being one of them, have hunted for a very long time, and you know, I'd go over to their house and they're like butchering a deer hanging up in the garage, and I was always like, no, like I don't want to see it, like but as I got older, and you know, when you actually like take a deep dive into what you're eating, where it comes from, what these animals that if you're eating animals, what these animals have been eating, how they've been treated, how their lives have been, what they've been pumped, like hormones pumped through their bodies, all the things, when I got into hunting, and processing my very first deer all by myself, it was, I mean, the first one I had help, but it was just this feeling where you're like so connected to your food and to where it came from, and being very grateful for that animal. Like I always have like a moment where I'm like, very thankful for the animal and honor it. But like packing out all that meat, and like I always get asked by like girlfriends, like, isn't it kind of gnarly or all bloody? And I'm like, it's honestly like really gnarly for me now is walking through Costco or Safeway and walking down the meat aisle. Like
Totally.
that freaks me out. And when you actually like,
and how much waste there is in that model, and
so much waste, from like plastic to everything here in Hawaii has been, I mean, all the meat in those stores, it's not local beef. It's all been shipped here. It's been sitting for like so long. All those animals have, they're not living and grazing beautiful grasslands here on Maui. Like people have no concept of actually like what and where that's coming from. And it's, I don't know. I just like, I really like knowing where my food comes from. And don't get me wrong, like I'll go to a friend's house and have a barbecue. I'm not gonna like X that out of my life completely. But if I'm cooking at home, it's like really high quality ingredients, and I like really enjoy what I'm eating.
I mean, like you said, people are sensitive about hunting. For those who are sensitive about hunting, they simply don't understand. It's just a total misunderstanding, because it's way less humane to eat grocery store meat, animal meat,
Totally. And it's just a sad part of life. Like I'm watching this show Alone. Have you seen that?
We got into it a couple years ago. Yeah, it's really good.
So there's a new season on Netflix. Sean and I are watching it right now. And it's just that for those that are just listening, and have never seen it, it's the show where I think it's 10 people get dropped off basically in the wilderness, and with a handful of items, a bow, some fishing line, a tarp, like things to be able to help you make a shelter and somewhat survive, but you're on your own with the skills that you have. And one of the girls was catching squirrels, and she was just talking about how it was really hard for her. Like she caught one, and then the other squirrels like screaming at it, like crying, and it was actually like a moment where I was like, oh, this is really hard. But the reality of life, and that we don't see, is like, why this happens in the natural cycles of life. Like animals have predators and they're killed, and it's like much less humane for a deer on the mainland to get eaten by a wolf than to have, an arrow put in it. And it's like, even just eating like just vegetables, like you're killing animals by having like these soy and wheat fields. Like there's animals that are being killed through that process as well. And it's sad, and taking a life, like I don't take it for granted, and I don't take it lightly. Like it is like, I mean, there's the axis deer here, some of the most beautiful animals ever, but I truly cherish every single part of that, and I share it with people, and I just really love it. It makes me feel really good, and I don't take more than we need. And we do share it with, I share it with friends and family, and every last scrap gets used. Like my dogs eat scraps that people would like normally just leave out in the field. Like they eat it. And well, yeah.
The other detail about that woman on Alone, having that emotional confrontation with catching the squirrel, is that you should have that emotional reckoning. If you choose to eat meat and you're divorced from that emotional reckoning, meaning you're just going to the grocery store and getting it in cellophane, that's disturbing. You should have to confront it and understand the life cycle that that animal went through and appreciate it and go through that. And then that meat is more meaningful to you. That's the humane way of doing it, you know?
I agree. And it's hard for
So,
people to understand unless they've actually seen it, you know? It's like
yeah.
to have a conversation and explain like where that steak came from, how that cow had been raised in a tiny little pen, hasn't been able to move around. Like people don't even really believe it until they see it.
Yeah.
You know? And so I understand where people are coming from. But yeah, I do have a connection with that, and I have it's just been a couple years, and I really love it. It's a huge passion of mine, and I do it a lot here in the summertime. You know, it's been flat and windy here for months, and I have a lot of projects going on right now, but that's kind of my surfing right now, and it's pretty amazing. The first couple times that I went with some friends, and I was bow hunting, and I came home and told Sean about it. And I was so fired up with adrenaline after I got my first deer. And I literally told him, I was like, it's like surfing Jaws, babe. I'm like, I found something that gives me that same feeling, but I can do it on land and there's nobody around. I'm in nature. I'm not on my phone. I'm smelling, breathing, just taking it all in. And I'm truly like disconnected from, you know, this like phone life that we all seem to live in. And you know, you don't have headphones on, you're listening to every little sound, paying attention to the wind direction, and it is such a amazing feeling to be able to have that from something else besides the ocean. And I have never really experienced something like that, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. And he thought I was crazy, and then he got into it, and he's like equally as stoked on it. And yeah, it's a fun thing to be able to share together as well, just outside of the water.
Well, you've referenced him a number of times, and we should probably fully recognize him for everybody else to understand. But Sean Ordonez Shapes, is it?
Yep.
SOS.
Yep. My fiance we've been together 16 years.
Wow.
And he's my life partner.
Awesome.
Yeah. And he's a surfboard shaper, or a board shaper. He makes everything. You know, high performance shortboards up to Piahi guns. I mean, he makes probably, I mean, I'm a little biased, obviously, but I mean, proof is in the pudding. He makes the best big wave guns for Jaws for sure. And he also makes, you know, he was a professional windsurfer back in the day, and so he makes windsurf boards, kite boards, tow boards, foil boards. He's making all a lift foils production line. Yeah, he can make pretty much everything, and he makes like really good, unique, different style of boards. And I'm very lucky to have him in my corner, and vice versa. It's funny, like I always kind of joke with him, like, do you imagine going out to dinner and not talking about surfboards? We've been working on that. But
That's
yeah,
funny.
he makes incredible crafts, and I'm very, very lucky to be writing them.
Very cool. Yeah, highly respected. What surf media do you follow nowadays?
Ooh. I mean, any like surf, like social media, probably.
Yeah.
All athletes that are traveling and doing really rad stuff. Surfline. I've been really enjoying, so I used to have this thing with Stab where I was like, I wasn't a huge fan, but then they've done some really cool pieces lately. Like I think I joined to be able to watch the Andy Irons documentary that they put together, and then the Stab in the Dark stuff they're doing, the electric acid stuff, like how surfers get paid. Like those are all really cool pieces. So I've been really liking what they've been putting out. I mean, as far as Surfer's Journal, but yeah, I guess as far as media, most of it's through social media.
Yeah.
Seeing what people are up to and following along on the adventures.
Speaking of people, whose surfing do you admire currently?
Oh gosh, there's so many good surfers. Leah Dawson's a dear friend of mine. We're about to do a trip to Mexico together. And I mean, she does stuff on boards in such a unique dancing, flowing way. I mean, it's super inspiring. And she gets in positions and I'm like, how do you do that on a board, let alone on the like ground? So she's definitely a fave. I mean, Steph Gilmore, obviously Carissa. There's so many good surfers and so many amazing Ethan Ewing is like a new fave for as far as the contest scene. I mean, John obviously is one of my favorite surfers, but Ethan Ewing is pretty fun to watch and has like a whole new flair and power and just crushing it. Dave Rostovich, one of my all-time favorites. Whenever he just put out a something on Patagonia, I think it was yesterday or the day before.
Nathan Oldfield just released a new film on him.
Yeah, so sick.
Yeah,
I mean, he's one of my favorite surfers. Big wave stuff. Greg Long is a dear friend, and I've always just really loved his approach and who he is as a person. And I mean, he's so methodical and he's always there when the waves are good. Jaws, Albie, Kai, Billy, Ian, like those guys are my favorite guys to watch out there. And yeah, the new up and comers like Moana Jones Wong is just so mind blowing. It's so cool to see like a handful of new girls just really pushing the limits in big barrels. It's so sick. I'm so fired up to see that. Aaron Brooks. There's so many young crew now coming up that are totally going to take it to a whole new level. But yeah, those are some of my faves. So right now, I guess off the top of my head.
Does Leah Dawson have like a background in dance?
Gosh, I don't know, but she can rip up the dance floor. That's for sure.
Is she really into yoga or have a background in yoga?
She does yoga. Yeah.
Okay. I was just thinking about some of that body fluidity like stuff that you're talking about. I was wondering if it was all informed by any of that.
Like background. Some of the things that she'll post online, I've literally tried to do because I'm like, how does she do that? And I can't even do it on like flat ground. And I'm like, how are you doing that? Like in the barrel?
Yeah, that's funny.
So cool.
Final question is just, what was the last surfboard that you rode?
It was a foil board, if that counts.
That counts, yeah. So I've got a foiling trip planned next week for my first time. I'm going to a camp, believe it or not, in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, strictly to learn how to foil.
Shut up.
Yeah, I've never done it once. This will be my first time.
No way.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been wanting it's kind of far south by Rodanthe. It's called Waves.
Okay.
The town itself is called Waves, believe it or not. But yeah, I've been wanting to get into it for a while, and we have a sponsor that's a retail shop based out of that area, and they host retreats for everything, and so they invited me out to go do it.
Real Water Sports, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I showed a film there, and their place is so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I've never seen anything like it. It's like a Costco surf place. Like it's huge.
I know, it's crazy.
So
they're killing it for retail. Yeah, so I'm excited to learn how to foil too, but you're really into it apparently.
I'm super into it. So yeah, it's like I said, it's been pretty flat and windy here, and I'm in the middle of finishing up our barn. So I've been doing a lot of work here at the property and not very much surfing. I did a month in Fiji all of May, which was incredible, and filled up my cup. And so I haven't surfed in a few weeks actually, which is kind of rare, but foiling for me is equally the same. So I foiled that last week winging. I was on a little 4-4 Sean made lift with lift foils, and had a amazing session down the coast here, and yeah, like I fell in love with foiling after I won my second Jaws title. The next day, everybody had been starting to get into it here, and the next day Sean and we'd been like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times, like we had just kind of gotten the like, oh, okay, we're just getting it. And the day after the Jaws contest, we took Twiggy, who had been into foiling, out to our spot, and I actually foiled every single day for 5 weeks straight, and I didn't surf, and just became absolutely infatuated with it. Nobody around, burgery, crappy waves, onshore, horrible, and it was firing every single day. It totally blew my mind and reinvigorated my stoke on surfing, and like I really needed it. And I mean, that was, I don't know, 5 years ago now, and I love it. I mean, I don't do it as much as that now, but it's pretty cool. Like I got into winging a couple years ago, so the summertime here was so different. And you're basically tow surfing with, you're towing yourself into waves. And the coast runs here are insane. We have the best downwind coast run ever. And yeah, I'm in love with it because you can do it when the waves aren't very good with nobody around, but just a couple of your friends. And for me, that says it all.
I'm sold. I'm inspired.
So once you get it, you got to come to Maui.
For sure. I love Maui. And yeah, just talking to you reminds me that I love Maui and I need to spend more time there.
Oh, it's so awesome. So much
good. Well, fantastic to finally connect with you.
You as well, David. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to share this conversation with people too. There was so much that I didn't know about you. Like I know obviously I have a lot of awareness of you and you pop up in my feed regularly. And all those accolades are, so impressive. So it was great to kind of hear the backstory and learn more.
Oh, well, thanks. I love your podcast, and I've been listening to it a lot lately, especially with all the painting and garden projects that I have going on. So keep up the good work and really enjoy your conversations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Chat soon.
Sweet.
Thanks.
Bye, David.